We are committed to replacing the House of Lords with an alternative second chamber that is more representative of the regions and nations. Labour will consult on these proposals. This is a reference to a commission, once again, chaired by Gordon Brown, that would, if it were put fully into effect after those consultations, would complete what I described as the evacuation of power from Parliament and away from you and me. Because what it would do effectively is to make Parliament cease to be sovereign. The House of Lords would indeed become representatives of the nations and the regions, but it would be given special powers to block any legislation passed by the Commons that was deemed to contradict a new constitution, new written constitution, that would incorporate new human rights. And these human rights, for example, would include the right to free healthcare. In other words, you would legislate the NHS into the Constitution. Again, it would include the absolute right to welfare for anybody legally in the British Isles. In other words, the moment an immigrant steps on shore, whether he's illegal or not, he is liable, he is required to have full welfare. Now, that would in fact conclude the process which began in 1997. It would turn the entire machinery of government into an obstacle for anything but a Labour government. The only government that could actually work happily with this structure of the courts, of the quangos, and of human rights is a Starmer-like government. It is an attempt at actually making this permanent. It's, of course, a determination that Brexit would never happen again, that there would never be a referendum, and above all, to make it nearly impossible for there to be an effective Conservative government. That means that the task, because I fear it is the task of opposition, and it may well be a very long opposition, the task of opposition is to recover that determination to change, real change, that determination that empowered and inspired Margaret Thatcher exactly 50 years ago and inspired her through that remarkable figure, Keith Joseph, who in 1975, after yet another long period of failed Tory government and the defeat of Edward Heath by Harold Wilson, and Starmer, get this right, Keith Joseph realised that although he'd called himself a Conservative and been a member of a Conservative government, they hadn't been Conservative. And he then realised that the first thing that a Conservative government had to do, as Margaret Thatcher understood too, was to repeal, in her case, to repeal the laws favourable to trade unions, which empowered them, the laws nationalising industry. An incoming Conservative government, and there will be one, I am absolutely convinced of this, an incoming Conservative government will have to have a similar confidence, but it will have to be a similar confidence based on similar deep research and understanding of the need to repeal in its entirety the legislation of New Labour and Change Labour. Take our constitution back to what it used to be. Take our constitution back to the supremacy of Parliament, which means the sovereignty of Parliament, which means the sovereignty of you and me, of the people. That is what we need to do. It is, interestingly enough, what happened exactly in 1660 after the fall of the Cromwell regime. We called it a restoration. I want another restoration.